for human rights and restoration of democracy in Nigeria in 1993. Some of us have been in the trenches. As soon as the military came back in 1984, December 83, 84, when you had the Buhari Idi Agbon junta, NADECO actually, and it's very important, NADECO was formed in May 1994. That was when we had begun the struggle to chase the military out of power. And in fact, NADECO came on board after the criminal annulment of the June 12th, the result of the June 12th election by the Babangida junta. And the essence of NADECO then was for Chief Abiola to assemble his own people, members of his own political class, to team up with the struggle of the pro-democracy movement. So that is another one. The third one is that I didn't contest election in 2007. Indeed, it was 2003 that I tried to run for the governorship of Ekiti State, That's under the platform of the National Conscience Party, led by the late Chief Gani Fawem. It was about the leadership of our country. We had thought, when we were fighting the military, that once democracy was restored, the lives of our people will be much better, will be improved upon, that the potentiality of our country will be realized, that human rights will be respected under the rule of law, there will be no illegal detention in our country, orders of court will be realized, there will be prosperity having regard to the enormity of the resources of our country. Little did we realize that the leadership of our country was going to be taken over largely by a set of people that have sheer contempt for development, that have hatred for our people, a set of people that are not prepared to address good governance in our country. And that is why we're in a mess. However, I would like to say that leadership, you will all agree with me, is the potential to influence the behavior of others, or rather, the capacity to influence a group or a country towards the realization of a goal. Once a country is led by a group of people that have no goal, no dreams, no vision, they can't have a mission to transform such a society. In the case of Nigeria, from a land of poverty to a land of prosperity, there is no goal. The only goal now is the rat race for many. In every society, the ideas of the ruling class are the ruling ideas, the prevailing ideas. And I think it was Kamal that made the point. Like in every historical epoch, the ideas of those who are in power, the ideas of the ruling class dominate the society. They make the laws, they influence the society, they make the rules and regulations, and expect everybody to comply. But where they fail on their own to comply, as in the case of Nigeria, where the leadership believes, the leadership generally, members of the ruling class, believe that they are above the law, you cannot expect such a society to be governed under the rule of law. So instead of the rule of law, we have the rule of rulers in Nigeria. That's a very significant point for all of us to know. But in order to justify their determination to continue the politics of impunity in our country, they say, oh, the followers and the leaders, all of them are guilty. Oh, Everybody is corrupt in Nigeria. Everybody is indisciplined. In other words, why are you blaming only the leaders? Now, what I'm going to show you in a moment is that if the leaders are disciplined, the followers will be disciplined. It's like a home. If a couple, in a home, fights on a daily basis, you do not expect their children, not to fight on the street. So if a country is not governed by law-abiding people, by those who believe that they are subject to law, you do not expect the citizens to be law-abiding. I belong to a WhatsApp group of human rights lawyers. Yesterday, an alleged internet fraudster, or people will call Yahoo boys, a Yahoo boy was denied bail by a judge because he was charged by the EFCC and was alleged to have duped a white lady of about $400,000, And the lawyers in the group were saying, oh, the judge did very well. Oh, the judge exercised his discretion judiciously and judicially. And that's how it should be. And I asked the lawyers, why are you saying this? In a country where those members of the ruling class, VIP criminal suspects, who are charged with stealing billions of naira, otherwise called money laundering, are granted bail, is automatic for them. Not only that, sometimes they rent a crowd and they bring drummers to the court. And people dance when they are charged. In other words, please, this is our hero. And those protests, those assemblies, those demonstrations around the court, demonstration of impunity, those who have come to the court to celebrate criminality are never said to be engaged in an illegal assembly by the police, because it's normal. They are celebrating members of the ruling class who have been charged with stealing billions of naira. The judge will grant them bail in Nigeria. It's automatic. Not only that, they are also given their passport to be able to junket around the world. But many of us unconsciously are made to believe by the ruling class that is normal. While, petty criminals, people will call common criminals, are put behind bars, sometimes for years, without trial. Now, we all forget that those who have stolen tubers of yam or loaves of bread to feed themselves are put behind bars in our country, whereas those who have stolen billions, who commit crimes against humanity, and what I mean is, if you steal $1 billion meant for the construction of a hospital, because that hospital is not in place, many people are going to die. If you steal $5 billion meant to construct a road, and the road becomes impassable, you are committing crimes against humanity. Many people are going to die on such roads. Now, we never address that. Oh, somebody has been caught, for armed robbery. Let us set fire on him in a bus stop. Or if he's taken to a police station, the police, men and women, are even allowed to engage in extrajudicial killings. Why do you want to take this dangerous criminal to court? Please, in Nigeria, waste him. But the big man, the VIP, who are charged with stealing 10 or 20 billion, are celebrated in the media are celebrated in the court, even for the EFCC and the ICPC or the police. Such people are never taken to court in a black maria. It's almost an anathema to take big people to court in a black maria. You take them to court in air-conditioned vehicles. Only the poor are taken to court in black maria. In a black maria. 2, you do not handcuff a VIP. It's an anathema in Nigeria. It's anomalous to handcuff a big man, but on a daily basis, poor common criminal suspects are handcuffed and leg chained as if they are being transported to the Americas. You know, so that is what you call the class character of our society. And unless you understand this, you are going to be blaming the victims of injustice, victims of poverty, caused by the ruling class. And Pastor, you will agree that when we're growing up, you know, up to about 40 years ago, if you were going to graduate in a university, before you wrote your final year exams, employers of labor came to interview you. During your youth service year, others will come, other employers of labor will come to interview you. By the time you are completing your youth service, you have about 2, 3, 4, 5 jobs in your hands. You now decide, you know, you now pick and choose which one will give me a car loan or a housing loan or both. You began your life. As the late Chief Gani Femi once told me, I think in Kuje prison, we're discussing our past. And he told me, Femi, when I became a lawyer in 1965, all I needed to take a car on loan, my collateral was my law school certificate. Once I dropped my law school certificate, I was given a brand new car, you know, in this country. But what has happened? What has happened? A group of people, largely made up of political buccaneers, took over our country under the military and reversed the development of our country completely, and we have never recovered. So the enormous resources of our country have been cornered under some dubious economic programs called privatization. For the majority of our people, commercialization, all social services, electricity tariffs are increased from time to time, the prices of fuel are increased from time to time, the prices of other goods are increased from time to time. You are then told, why are the poor talking about fuel subsidy? It is economically suicidal to be talking of subsidy. Those who are singing such a misleading and dangerous song are given, if you must know, at the port when they are importing goods, they are granted what you call duty waivers. They will not pay duties for goods they are importing, which may be running to billions of naira. Apart from that, they have access to loans. They are giving oil blocks, which turn them into instant billionaires or multi-billionaires. The loans they take are sometimes called toxic loans. These loans can collapse an economy. They are unpayable. And that was why the government said, let us create AMCON, Asset Management Corporation of Nigeria, so that the dangerous debts, the toxic debts of the rich can be bought and warehoused. Because they can't pay. If the government had not come in, the economy will have collapsed completely. And so government in a way has forgiven them their loans. If you have Any asset, we can take it, but please go and sin no more. And that is what you call AMCON. But for the poor, you must tighten your belts all the time. But the Constitution is saying, their own Constitution, Section 17, that there shall be equal opportunities before the law for all citizens in our country. So the point I'm making, therefore, is in our country, leadership has to be defined properly. And leadership is not about those who are in power. It is about any group of people that can influence a society, I would say positively. In 2020 October, a group of young people decided so much on their own to take leadership. And how did they do it? They took a single item, police brutality in Nigeria. And for a few weeks, they provided leadership in our country. The government was running helter-skelter. Government officials were running helter-skelter in order to address that single goal of ending police brutality in our country. And the whole world paid attention to the very peaceful protest organized by young men and women across the country. Now, what happened? Again, many of you, by the June argument of the government, by saying, oh, we made a mistake. We allow hoodlums to hijack. Who are hoodlums? Because you just swallow hook, line, and sinker. The arguments of the government, which are special, which are deceitful. You had a protest that lasted 2 weeks in this country without any violence until, and we saw this in Abuja and Lagos. Thugs were hired to unleash mayhem, to unleash violence on the young people. We saw it on television. In the case of Abuja, where you have all the embassies, in this country, in broad daylight, thugs were ferried in government jeeps without plate numbers to attack unarmed protesters in Lagos at Alauzagia, in the government secretariat. Thugs in public vehicles, government buses, came to attack unarmed protesters. You know what happened? Since thugs were having a field day, other thugs took over. And that was when the government began to talk about hoodlums. And I submit that hoodlums are lumpen elements used by the government. During election, they are called thugs. In peacetime, they are called area boys. During public protests against the government, they are called hoodlums because they are unleashed on armed protesters so as to stop embarrassing the government. Whichever way, when we're growing up, we didn't have a large army of unemployed people who could be used as thugs during election by politicians, or area boys to attack people in the neighborhood, or hoodlums to attack unarmed protesters. Whichever way you look at it, the government is to blame. Now, having said that, the young people that took over leadership were disorganized, but certain lessons have been learned. And we must thank people like our pastor here, who were charged because he had cause to commend those young men and women and to advise them to continue to maintain peace while making their demands. For that reason, he was charged along with about 50 others for what offense? For, according to them, inciting those young people to violence. Somebody went to court and wanted to get an order to have them arrested and prosecuted. But as we did say in court, I sent a lawyer. As my lawyer submitted in court, the right to protest is a fundamental right in Nigeria to protest for or against the government. And by coincidence, just incidentally, I won the case in 2006 for the ANPP, a political party that was called All Nigeria People's Party, led by General Buhari at the material time. They were disbanded in Kano. The members had a rally under the Olusegun Obasanjo regime. They were disbanded in Kano. They were violently dispersed. They were tear gassed. And they came to my chamber to challenge the violation of their right to assemble, the right of freedom of expression. And we went to court for them, pro bono publico. We didn't take a dime from them. We won the case in 2006. The police appealed. In 2008, we won the case. Based on the legal victory, the National Assembly enacted the law, amended the Electoral Act in 2015, that during protest, the police shall provide adequate security. In 2020, when the Police Establishment Act was enacted, it was also stated there, section 83, subsection 4, that during protests in Nigeria, the police shall protect the protesters. Assuming in 2020, because this law came into force in 2015, another one came into force in September 2020. If the police have surrendered Lekki to protect the protesters, if the police have surrendered protesters in Alausa at the Secretariat, it will have been possible for the so-called hoodlums to hijack the protest and cause such mayhem in the society. But what happened? When the state could not stop the protest, the military was ordered, albeit illegally, to rain bullets on unarmed protesters. Under our law, I've already just informed you that you have the right to protest. During protest, once you inform the police, they will protect you. The protection was not done. As if that was not enough, soldiers were asked to go and brutalize the young people. Again, contrary to the judgment of the court, Federal High Court, in Femi Falana, and the Chief of Army Staff, when the judgment was delivered in 2019, the army just woke up one day and said, we are going to subject every Nigerian to a search on the street. And if you are unable to produce your driving license, your passport, or voter's card, you are going to be arrested. I went to court. How dare you? What is the business of the military in going to the street to harass documents of any Nigerian? It shall be done by the police. There have been about 4 cases won by the APC as members of the opposition, whereby under the Jonathan regime, 4 cases where the court held that the army, the armed forces, shall not be involved in elections, monitoring for elections, or carrying out any act that has to do with internal security in our country, unless the police are unable to cope and they are now invited. Again, they have to be invited in accordance with the law. Only the president can invite them and then inform the National Assembly. In this instance, it wasn't the president that gave orders that the military should move to Lekki or anywhere. But that's on that. Now, to ensure that no government in Nigeria brutalizes Nigeria, we have a whole chapter in the Nigerian Constitution devoted to human rights. This chapter 4 has set out in extenso the rights of Nigerians. And basically, these rights include the right to life, the right to dignity, thou shalt not be tortured, the right to liberty, thou shalt not be detained illegally, the right to fair hearing. Before you are condemned, whether in court or in your home or in your school or wherever, you must be given fair hearing. And as the late Justice Esho once said, even God, who was omnipresent, still called Adam, where art thou? And gave Adam fair hearing. So the right of fair hearing, was practiced in the Garden of Eden, So privacy, your right to privacy, your telephones, your communication, your letters shall not be opened. Your computer shall not be opened by the police or any security agent without your authorization. It's a constitutional right, Section 37 of the Constitution. Freedom of conscience and religion. You can worship God or decide not to worship God. It's your constitutional right. Of course, freedom of assembly, I've just noted that. Freedom to assemble, freedom to associate with others, to belong to any society, whose activities are legal. Of course, freedom from discrimination. In a home, you cannot give preference to your male children. There are judgments of our courts now to the fact that female children cannot be disinherited with respect to the estate of their parents. Freedom from discrimination, right to property, and right to acquire property in any part of Nigeria. You can't say, oh, you are a northerner, you can't have a plot of land in Lagos or vice versa. And right to compensation in case of any compulsory acquisition of your property. For instance, my law office or my home can be acquired by the governor of Lagos State for a public purpose. In other words, if they want to have a clinic in my neighborhood or a school, you can acquire my house. But under the Constitution, I am entitled to a fair and just compensation. So you can't demolish the houses of people and give them pittance, which would not be enough to put up another building or other house. And that is what the Constitution is saying. But let me say this. These rights entrenched in the Constitution are only enjoyed by the rich or the well-to-do because they have the economic wherewithal or the resources to hire the services of a lawyer or lawyer when these rights are violated. But for the ordinary people, if any of these rights is violated, you simply hand over your faith to the Almighty God by saying, God will judge, by which time none of us may be around. So that is the fate of the poor. So these rights are a tantalizing reality for the majority of our people. But what we have done over the years is to insist that since we have equal rights under the law, we must actualize the right to equality by ensuring, we must ensure that anybody whose right has been violated will have a field day in court, whether you are rich or poor. And so we set up human rights bodies. As private lawyers, as private individuals, and you don't have to be a lawyer to be a human rights activist. The late Dr.
I think you are muted.
Okay, let me check.
Okay, it's better now.
Am I okay now?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, pastors who have joined the struggle for the enforcement of human rights in our country. Of course, along the way, they have run into problems because we're fighting for human rights under the military. Many of us got thrown into jail, and charged with all manners of offenses, including treasonable felony. But I can assure you, we were never convicted. So we are able to move on and continue to struggle for the enforcement of the rights of our people. And because of our campaign, government was then compelled, the government of Nigeria was compelled to set up by law the Legal Aid Council. The Legal Aid Council Act provides that every Nigerian whose salary, whose means, or who any Nigerian who does not earn beyond minimum wage shall be entitled to free legal services, whether by way of advice or, if you are arraigned in court or you have a civil claim. Unfortunately, majority of Nigerians are not aware of this right. If they are aware of the provisions of this law, every office of the Legal Aid Council should be peopled, should be besieged every day by our people. And the government will have been forced to look for lawyers to defend people in our country. Now, you also have the National Human Rights Commission, also set up by the government to protect the rights of Nigerians. The rights I've mentioned are civil and political rights. All our socio-economic rights, the right to education, the right to health, the right to job opportunities, and if you are unemployed, the right to unemployment benefits and the rest of them, which are called socio-economic rights, right to environment and the rest of them, which are entrenched in Chapter 2. The members of the ruling class, regardless of their ethnicity or religion, decided together to deny our people the right to socio-economic, access to socio-economic rights. So Chapter 2, all the provisions, Section 13 to 26, shall not be enforced, are not justiciable. In other words, you can't go to court and say, I graduated 2 years ago, 5 years ago, have not been given a job. Therefore, you must pay me unemployment benefits in line with the provisions of Section 17 of the Constitution. You are going to be told by the court that the right is not justiciable. In Femi, Falana, Minister of Works, I once traveled to Benin, and the road was so bad that I almost had an accident. So I came back to Lagos and filed an action in court that my right to life was threatened by the state of the road. And the court said, yes, Mr. Falana, you are right. I've also traveled on that road, but you have no local standard. What that means, you have no legal standing to sue. In other words, everybody passes through the road. Why are you the only one complaining? Only the attorney general can complain on behalf of all of us. But as the Court of Appeal noted, in the case of Femi and the president, no attorney general in Nigeria has ever sued a government of which is a part. So you don't expect the Attorney General to sue the federal government to say a road has not been fixed. And the judge, who incidentally happened to be a Yoruba man, he said, a Yoruba man, asked me, Mr. Falana, please, in dismissing my case, say, go and bear your full name. And what is my full name? Falana, but here, Falana, mind your own business. And I had to tell the court, I am minding.
Please unmute. Oh, it's frozen.
But all those provisions in chapter 2 have now been encapsulated in the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, which is an act of parliament. The right to socio-economic rights, right to education, as was decided by the ECOWAS. In the and that has forced the government to enact a law in the Federal Capital Territory, Child's Rights Act, that every Nigerian child shall be educated at the expense of the state from primary school Child Rights Act. There's also the UB Act, Universal Basic Education Act, which again has been adopted by the majority of the state. In other words, we are not supposed to have school children roaming the streets. If the law, if those two laws are properly enforced by our country. Let me therefore say that we have the duty collectively to defend our rights under the law. Nobody will defend this right for you. I'll give you an instance of a client of mine. And this is why we must all fight for our rights. And I'm going to appeal to you. I'm starting with my pastor. In our churches, in our mosques, in our workplaces, we must have human rights units, human rights committees for the defense of our people. Nobody will do it for you. And we have won a lot of law and rights for our people. Under the constitution I've just told you, everybody arrested in a place like Lagos, where you have courts within a radius of 40 kilometers, shall be taken to court within 24 hours. Only a court of law can detain you beyond 24 hours. Therefore, if you are detained beyond 24 hours, get a lawyer to go to court for you so that you can get some damages awarded in your favor. At the police station, don't pay for bail. I beg you, don't pay for bail. It's your right. And that is why we suffer. We don't want to, Nigerians don't want to suffer for a minute. So we are so desperate. Hence, our rights are taken away from us. Please get the number of, and they can be circulated, and pass this to our pastor. The numbers of all DPOs in Lagos, all. The numbers of all police officers in Lagos State, so that if a family member of yours or a friend of yours is detained and you are asked to pay bail, call the DPO or the commissioner of police. Instantly, bail will be granted free of charge. Secondly, if you know anybody who is assaulted or tortured in a police station, file a complaint, because in 2017, our country has abolished torture. We have what you call Anti-Torture Act. to torture a Nigerian. Whoever does it will face a trial, and the penalty is 25 years. If the victim dies, the police officer, whoever is involved, will be charged with murder. If you are taken to a police station, the police shall, at their own expense, inform your relation or your friend that you are being kept in a particular police station. In that station, you are not required to answer a question without consulting your lawyer. And just insist, I must talk to my lawyer before I can answer any question. It's your right under the administration of criminal justice law in Lagos State. It's your right under the Constitution of Nigeria. Let me conclude by appealing to all of us that we have to take leadership in our, all of us. Don't rely on any politician. I mean, many people are declaring already in the last month or two. Not less than 5 or 6 people have come out to say that they want to be presidents of Nigeria. None of them, none, has ever pledged to respect the human rights of Nigeria. None has ever said, if I become president, there will be no illegal arrest, no illegal detention, no harassment on the highway. Nobody is saying that. Because they already assume that the rights of our people must be taken away from them. So that is why all of us must be ready to take leadership. In a place like Lagos, what the law is saying, and I beg you, locate the chief magistrate in your neighborhood. Because the law says, once a month, a chief magistrate shall visit all the police stations in his or her magistrate district. The reason is, it is to stop illegal detention. You must get the magistrate. You must remind the chief magistrate. Locate the chief magistrate. Please, you have not conducted the visit. In this neighborhood, a few of us want to accompany you during the visitation. The magistrate is empowered to order the release of those who should not be in the station, to order that those who should be taken to court be arraigned in court, or to give orders that are appropriate, in the circumstance. If any policeman or woman violates the rights of Nigerians, the chief magistrate shall file a report. Your right to your property cannot be taken. Your computers, your handsets cannot be taken without a court order. You cannot be declared wanted without a court order. Your house cannot be searched without a search warrant. So please know these basic rights, and please collectively, you can't do it alone. Let us fight collectively for the protection of our rights. And for 2023, you must have certain basic minimum demands, irreducible minimum demand. For those who want to become legislators, who want to become governors or presidents, we must make demands and commit them to respect the rights of our people, including socioeconomic rights. This country has enough resources to take care of everybody. We must not allow, beyond 2023, we must not allow any leader to go abroad for treatment. The right to health is the right of all of us. If you cannot treat yourself here, you must also face, the fate of the ordinary people. So let us build a new country with effect from 2023. And the only way we can do that is to take leadership. And what I mean by that is that we all have a duty to set certain goals for ourselves. Where should Nigeria be in 2027? In your neighborhood, you must today begin to identify who your councillor is. You must know your legislator in Alausa. Lagos has 40 legislators at the secretariat. How many of us are aware? How many of us know them? Lagos has 24 legislators in the House of Reps and 3 senators. Have we ever demanded for a constituency meeting so that you can put your views across? You can discuss insecurity in Nigeria. You can discuss unemployment of our youth. And you can demand of your senator, House of Rep members and the rest of them, when are we going to have a hospital in our environment? And unless we are ready to do this, we are not prepared for leadership. Once again, I would like to thank you for this opportunity. Pastor, I'll be ready, if time permits, to take a couple of questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, my brother. You have spoken, you have spoken, you have spoken, and you have really educated a lot of us on our basic rights. A lot of Nigerians do not know their rights. They are frightened by government, frightened by police, frightened by all sorts of things. And they seem as if you don't know somebody in Nigeria, you are condemned. Please move the bottle away a little bit so we can see your face a bit. You've used your bottle to block our view. We can't see you.
Oh, sorry, please. I need some water.
We have a right to see you.
Oh, okay. And I have a right to drink water.
It's our constitutional right to see you. Right. Thank you. You touched on something very, very critical. They need to build a new country and they need to make basic demands of our leaders. 2023 is approaching. Looking from your crystal ball, what do you see? Who do you think will emerge president of Nigeria come 2023? And how can we influence that process? What's your thinking?
What to start with? In each of our areas, we must look at the problems confronting our people. For instance, all over the country, the problem of insecurity stares us in our face. The question of unemployment of young people, the question of poverty in the midst of plenty, abuse of the rule of law, disobedience of court orders, and violation of human rights. These are daily occurrences. So we must put them together and have the commitment of anybody who wants to govern Nigeria or our state or even our local government. What do you want to do? How do you want to tackle insecurity? I've been reading a lot of nonsensical things about 2023, very irrelevant things. Nobody is asking the candidates, what do you want to do about these problems confronting us? Infrastructural decay and the place of Nigeria in Africa and the world. These are issues that we have to put in the front burner. And that is the answers we get to this question. We eliminate a number of the candidates, and that's my own position. But on our own part, we must also be prepared to mobilize and sponsor public-spirited people in our environment. Don't leave politics for professional politicians. The politics of a country must be the business of all of us. And the only way you can do that is to recognize those who have made contributions to our society at local levels, state levels, or national levels. And then, even if they are not interested, can we persuade them? Can we raise the fund for them? Again, our young people demonstrated this during the NSAS protest. And if you believe in a cause, we can raise the money. Nigerians will be prepared to contribute, but they want to be convinced that this struggle is worth, is worth their attention, it's worth their commitment. And so I would like to say, number one, we need to identify our goals. What do we want in our environment? What do we want for our country? Secondly, we must be prepared to encourage good people, I would say, good men and women to participate in the democratic process. Of course, all of us must be prepared to get our PVC, permanent voters cards, and then we must identify political parties that can influence the society, that can change our life for the better. I mean, we must not be attracted by politicians that will be in one party in the morning. Before night break, they're in another party. The following morning, they are back to square one. So these are not political parties. And don't say, oh, this man cannot win, so why should I waste my vote? Your votes can make him to win. And I think these are the things we should be prepared to address before 2023.
Thank you very much, my brother. And I'm going to take you up on what you have said, especially this area of looking for public-spirited people who have the quality and the ability to govern this nation at different levels. Even if we just look at presidency, gubernatorial, maybe a few representatives here and there. If you and I, or if you can work on such a list of people, and like you rightly said, a lot of them might need to be persuaded and might need to be funded. It would be brilliant if we can come up with such a list of people and see how we can push them in the fore. This is one of the things that this platform is trying to do, and what we're forming a movement to do. Present this list to Nigerians and say, we think these people can deliver the goods, as against just waiting and being a sitting duck for whatever these two political parties can bring up. And I think the sooner we try to do that, the better. But the question I have for you is that, having run for office in 2003, why did you not run for office again? And are you going to run for office? Do you have that sort of mind?
Well, I must confess that after the 2003 experience, I found out that the atmosphere had become extremely polluted. I had offered myself, selling my ideas. I went to every town and village, preaching the gospel, as it were, of good governance. And we engage the people in what the late Watarodni will call meeting with our people. At the end of the day, the election was massively rigged. It became very expensive after 2003. Today, to become a governor of a state, it said that you need no less than 3 billion. Some of the small states, a place like Lagos, it cannot be less than 10 billion. In fact, they are saying now that you need about 15 billion to contest for the presidency of Nigeria. But my own position is that you can't contest. I have now realized that I shouldn't have contested election once and then run away, by and by, the people will have understood they will have understood what you stand for. That you will not distribute money, but you want to distribute ideas. You want to assure them from what you have done in the society that you can stand by them and that you can fight to protect their interests, and that you are not going to steal their money. I remember this when I was contesting. Some members of the elite met me somewhere and said, Mr. Falana, your problem with fear. Now, if you become the governor of this state, you will not allow people to steal. I thought that was very positive. And I said, yes, I want to save the money for development, so that We are going to run a people-centered, agenda that will improve the lives of our people qualitatively. And they said, we are not there yet. But for me, if I had continued with my group, I'm sure the sky might have been the limit by now. But whether I'm going to run again or not, it cannot be my individual decision. I belong to a movement that will have to give assignments to people, right? So it cannot. I'm not like no those visual politicians. So I want to be clear. I'm going to consult. You have to consult first before you declare. But they declare, and then expect people, to consult for them. So I belong to a disciplined organization that will define my own role, and Pastor, my own organization may feel that people like you should not go to any office, should stay out there and defend our people. Again, it depends on what assignment I'm giving my organization. Thank you very much.
Okay, so this organization, my brother, are they going to do something this 2023? Are they going to evolve into a political party?
The People's Alternative Political Movement. It's a movement right now. Submitted an application to the INEC. And the basic goals of our organization is to mobilize our people to take their political destiny in their own hands. We want to ensure that every child in this country will have access to education, that every Nigerian will be gainfully employed. We want to ensure that our country takes a rightful place in the Committee of Nations. And we're going to ensure that we mobilize our people to control the resources of the nation. And that is, we want to enforce Chapter 2 of the Constitution. For instance, Section 16 says that the commanding height of our country, of our economy, shall be controlled by the people. The resources of our country shall be harnessed to promote the welfare of our people. Section 14 says, the security and welfare of the people shall be the primary purpose of government, not, primitive accumulation. That cannot be the primary purpose of a government. So for us, we are going to ensure the enforcement of Chapter 2 of the Constitution. And all the laws I've mentioned, which are currently observed in the breach, are going to be enforced. I mean, for heaven's sake, why should a government not guarantee right to liberty? Why should we allow people to commercialize the liberty of our people by going to the street to arrest people and then extorting money from the police station, in a police station? Why should any government allow that? For instance, we are also promising that in line with Section 60 of the Police Establishment Act, every police station shall have a lawyer to observe the human rights of our people. It's already in the law. So these are the laws. We are not inventing the wheel. The laws are there. These laws were not made willingly by the ruling class. They were made based on the struggle of our people. You have the minimum wage. You have the Health Insurance Scheme Act. You have the Pension Reforms Act. Why are people dying on the road? Every government must know how many people are going to retire this year. So on the day, their last day in office, you must give them a check regarding their gratuity. And then you place them on pension instantly. Why should people queue, be dying on having served our country diligently and conscientiously? Why should anybody be cleaned up? Or the government will say, oh, you want to know how many pensioners are in the country? Don't you have your records? But you don't say that when people are retiring. You, apart from what some of them might have stolen, you pay their entitlements when they are living off it. And that should be extended to all our people. Right now, we have 16 million on school children that have dropped out of school with the incursion of the insurgents now, the number would have risen, would have been higher than that. Our country has the largest number of out-of-school children in the world. It shouldn't be so. Our country is the poverty, global headquarters of poverty in the world. It should not be so. So we're going to ensure that we mobilize the resources of our people for the benefit of our people. Every government must have some ethical codes of standard. Once you breach the line, whoever you are, you have to quit off. But this culture of impunity will have to stop. If a court has ordered that anybody be detained, be released, you must release the person. If you don't release the person, you will pay dearly for it. And to stop illegal detention, we intend to say that if a court finds that a Nigerian has been detained illegally and the court awards damages, the police officer involved will pay part of the money. If you have retired, you pay part of your pension. And that is the only way to stop gross abuse of human rights in our country. So for us, what is key is participatory democracy. Everybody must be involved. This business of giving 500 naira to people of 5,000 during election will have to stop because it's against the provisions of the Electoral Act. It's a criminal act to allow people to give money. And all of us will have to ensure that these laws are implemented this time. And we must start with the 2023 election. That section 125 of the Electoral Act has prohibited distribution of rice, salt, and money to induce voters. They are so brazen now that even on the queue, while voting, they distribute money. What is supposed to be a secret ballot, you will show where you are voted, then you go and collect money in the presence of policemen and women. No, this disgraceful conduct will have to stop. And all of us can stop. Like you all do now, young people now, they have their phones to capture events. And so it will no longer be enough to capture these events. Once criminal elements are exposed, whoever you are, we must deal with you. And that is our position as a movement that wants to govern our country. It's going to be a question of no matter how high you are, the law will be higher than you. That's us.
Good. I would like to really learn a bit more about this movement and see if there are ways we can work together and move, because we share almost exactly the same ideals. We cannot afford in 2023 not to have the kind of leadership that can really impact our people. And like you say, there's too much resource all over the place, more than enough for everything. But I want to ask you two questions and then throw the floor open for our guests to ask as many questions as they want within the time that we have. I'll try, they should make the questions short and sharp. And then I'll also ask that you make the responses short and sharp so that we can take as many questions as possible. My two questions are this. Number one, PDP, APC. Do you have any hope that the processes that they're both going through and the kinds of people they have, some of whom are your friends and my friends and well known to us, can throw up for us any candidates that we think can pilot the affairs of this country? Do we still have hope in any of those parties? And will they throw up for us a candidate that we can work with? That's number one. Number two, the young people who took charge in 2020, the NSAS, I feel for them, I feel for their parents. A lot of them have been so frightened that they seem to have lost a bit of steam and run into their holes. And I don't blame them. We know that people were killed at that place. There's nothing anybody can say that is contrary. And like you said, even though I wasn't really put on any list, a lot of us who seem to have supported them and I appeared at the thing, we also have borne a little bit of brunt and threat here and there from government and people like that. What do you think these young people should do? and which direction should they go, and how can they come back and be part of this process that we're going through? So those are my two questions very quickly.
Well, thank you very much. I think the best answer is that it's our experience. The PDP was in power for 16 years. The APC now will soon be in power for 8 years. And the conditions, living conditions on our country are getting worse by the day. For me, I don't think we are going to be limited to the two political parties. I think it is generally agreed by majority of patriotic people that there has to be some decisive intervention by other democratic forces so as to save our country from what has become what I will call an imminent collapse. Our country is moving inexorably to a war situation, and there is no way either political party can salvage and can stop, the destruction of the country. But we mustn't allow them. And for that reason, I continue to insist that good men and women, patriotic men and women, committed men and women will have to intervene decisively in the affairs of our country. And it shouldn't be at the presidency alone. It should be at all levels. A few local governments in this country, a few legislators can say, sorry, this is the salary that has been approved for us. Mentioned the fact that about 50 of them were charged together with your good self. You did not even have to appear in court. You took over the defense and got the case dismissed. Those whose accounts were frozen, we got their accounts frozen. Those whose passports were seized, got the passport released. Of course, those who were killed, we are pursuing their killers, locally and internationally. And I can show you of that, Crimes against humanity can no longer be covered up by any regime in the world. But our duty is to let the young people know the efforts that have been made, to protect their interests. And I can tell you, and I was flabbergasted, when the young people decided, regardless of the empty threats of the government, that we're going to mark the first anniversary of the October 20 project. The entire street was saturated with armed troops and gendarmes. But at the end of the day, the young people came out. In fact, that morning, I called my son first. You guys are demonstrating. Are you going to? Say yes. We are going to surprise them. And I said, what do you mean? We are going to demonstrate in our cars, in our vehicles. And of course, these young people went to Lekki in their vehicles and they started putting their horns, and they made their point. So for me, the young people are not in any way discouraged. There have been demonstrations since then, and more demonstrations will take place. But we want to assure them there are lawyers, there are human rights groups all over the country, and our movement is prepared to defend Nigerians who are enforcing their rights. So we want to assure young people and the entirety of Nigerians that we are not a conquered people. And once we can show young people that we are there are people who are going to defend them. There are organizations that will defend them. For me, I think they are encouraged to want to keep up the struggle. And so far, so good. The government knows it has not defeated them. Just yesterday, a bill was a bill emerged in the National Assembly. Oh, based on the NSAS protest, can we address the problems of the police now? So the young people didn't lose, they won. And what the greatest lesson they taught is that if Nigerians are mobilized, if Nigerians are organized, they can demand their right and win. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Let me take some questions from Ibrahim Pam, Ben Prince, Michael Edobo, Adedoyin Oshinlalu, and Femi Olowe, and Yemisi Oyewumi. Those 6 questions very quickly. Like I said, short, sharp, straight to the question. Forget about niceties and compliments and thanking anybody. We just want to go straight to the question. You can introduce yourself and then say what your question or your comment is. Ibrahim Pan, please. Maybe you take these 6 and then respond to them. Ibrahim.
Yeah.
Please unmute yourself. Yeah.
Thank you, Pastor Itwa. Mr. Falana, very good to see you again. Let me go back to 1981-82 when you were PRO of. Can you hear me?
Yes, very well.
All right.
Thank you.
When you were PRO of the Students' Union at the University of Ife.
1979-80.
79-80, I beg your pardon, sir.
Thank you.
And at that time, the universities in Nigeria were the center for ideological and political education of youth. And I know you were, I think, with the Alliance of Progressive Students at the time.
Yes.
Now,
you know me very well.
All that has changed. Now you have universities where students are asked to wear uniforms. They're punished by kneeling down in the corner. How do you think we can revive our institutions of learning as centers of political education for our youth? This is a long-term view. Now, again, civil society, and you said this in 1999, after all the struggle, were you not too naive to expect that there would simply emerge an altruistic ruling class? And how can civil society now redefine its role in political governance in Nigeria? I'd love for you to speak on the Oputa panel. I was privileged to work alongside you on the Oputa panel, and I'd really like to hear your view on how the Oputa panel report, or how that whole process can be revived. Is there any further value we can derive from it? Thank you, Mr. Falana.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
By the way, congratulations to your son on taking the baton from you. And as they say in Nigeria, snake not a born lizard. You have sired a worthy legacy. God bless you.
Thank you very much. Yes,
thank you very much. Ben Prince, please. Ben Prince, straight to the comments of the question.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Pastor Tua.
Wow.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay, my name is Prince Ben Ikani, former Attorney General of Kogi State. Mr. Elena Senior Advocate, sir, the issue you have elaborated is quite, common sensical to everybody. Nigeria is on the edge, but most worrisome is that the issue of disobedience to court orders is not abating in this country. And what can we do to stem this trend? Because without obedience to court order, even small parastatals these days don't obey court order. And court resolutions is one of the fundamental setup of any democracy. We are losing it seriously. I can give you so many number of court decisions that either to be implemented by the government, they refuse blatantly. How do we get out of this mess?
Thank you very much, Prince Ben Ikani, former Attorney General, Kogi State. Can I please invite Michael Edobo too, very quickly?
Okay. Mr. Ito, thank you very much, Femi Falana. My name is Edobo Uyosa Michael. I happen to be in London. I'm a cybersecurity personnel. I just have a very quick question for our fund. As regards to the youth integration in politics, it's observed that, particularly like in my state, Edo State where I'm from, but this is a general thing across Nigeria. It is widely known that so much money is involved in Nigerian politics. Now, how do we integrate the youth who has a clear vision for good governance at heart with little resources? Because even to contest as little as local councillorship position, it involves a lot of money. People on board who has good ideas, but they have little resources to put into this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Edobo. I can feel your pain, and I will pray for you and God to give us a breakthrough in Jesus' name.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Femi Onowe, please. Femi Onowe. Can you unmute yourself, Femi? All right, Femi. Okay, Yemisi, please. Oyewumi.
Good evening, sir. My name is Susan Oyewumi. My question, pardon me to start my question with a Yoruba adage that actually says, "Olóòótọ́ ni ọ̀tá." By preaching the political truths, do you by any means get pressurized, threatened, or being forced to withdraw by the federal government or government in general? And another question I have is that how do we get a link to human rights? Probably if we need to, we need any help or any helping hands from the human rights. How do we get a link, sir? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Susan. Okay, so the next person I think is Adedoyin Osunlalo.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, Pastor, for putting this together. And thank you, Chief Falana, for finding time out of your very busy schedule to be here. We appreciate you. Number one, let me just commend your passion for human rights. You have demonstrated this on many occasions, and we appreciate your consistency. Let me also appreciate you, sir, for the courage, should I call it courage, for writing a letter to the chair of authority of ECOWAS head of state concerning some disturbing developments in the sub-region. And like somebody who has shown admiration for your effort, I want to say thank you very much. However, concerning the coups, the military within the sub-region, trying to draw us back, what is the human right dimension to this destabilizing or to the destabilization of lawful governments? The human right dimension to the destabilization of lawful government, particularly on the general populace who are set back, who are to live with fear, and being denied when sanctions are imposed by relevant authorities. That is point number one. Then the second question is, can these coup plotters be prosecuted after leaving office, possibly taking them to International Criminal Court or to ECOWAS Court, whichever may be relevant? Because until there is something done, what ECOWAS has on paper will not be sufficient to deter coup plotting within the sub-region. Something drastic has to be done. That is, apart from that, we may need military intervention. When they come in, we send people to put them down, which I need your advice concerning this for general information. Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Femi, can you please respond to those questions? Olu? Is Mr. Falana still on? Can you unmute him?
Is she still here?
Please
Can you hear
unmute.
me?
We can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. I'm saying that I didn't hear the question from Susan Oyewumi.
Okay,
So
Susan.
I don't want to discriminate against her.
She says, I think she made some comments and says that you have been threatened and you've faced a lot of. Have you been threatened? How have you managed being threatened, and how have you been able to continue to face the public and face the authorities? And have you managed the threats on your life or something like that? I think that was the question.
Thank you. Now, I go and start with my friend from Ife, who has taken me back to our Ife days. Yes, I agree with you. As undergraduates, we were well educated, even outside our classrooms. And that was a period in our country when we were exposed to ideas, reactionary views, progressive ideas. And if you could recall, even the late fella, I think between 80 and 81, fella went around the campuses and delivered about 60 lectures, you know. And fella promoted more than anybody some very progressive books about Africa. Untitled Chapter, Frantz Fanon. In fact, fella promoted how Europe underdeveloped Africa by Walter Rodney, you know, until that book became a compulsory reading for every undergraduate in our country. Yes, at that time, the universities or tertiary institutions were centers of learning. Part of the legacy of military rule in our country was the battle against ideas. The Babangida regime in particular decreed progressive ideas out of existence by, he called them extremist ideas. I mean, how can a coup platter be talking of extremist ideas? But that was what we went through. But what we are trying to do, unfortunately, in the last 22 years or thereabout, campus administrators are also like military dictators, resorted to the proscription of student unions or suspension of student unions, where my movement has decided now, our organization has decided that we are challenging the NUC, National Universities Commission, that the existence of student unions has to be made compulsory in all campuses. Staff unions must exist in all campuses because it is part of the freedom of expression. And you can't train leaders, you can't train young people in leadership if they are not allowed to run their own student unions. In every student union in our days, every student union in our days had the judicial organ, the executive branch, and the legislative branch. Many of those who are now in power were student activists or leaders in their time. So we want to go back to that era. Yes, I've already said that it wasn't political naivety that we decided to return to our professional callings in 1999. Because we are not politicians at that time. We just simply felt we pushed the military out of the political scene. We then thought, like Nkrumah once said, take political independence, all other things will follow. Again, the late Nkrumah realized that without economic control, all those governments were going to collapse. And that was when he wrote in exile, Neo-colonialism, the last stage of imperialism. You know, so we have also discovered that we can no longer leave the political scene for political politicians, I mean, professional politicians. And that is why we are now getting more involved than ever before. Even if a mistake was made, we are now, it's a very costly one. We are now trying to address the problem by mobilizing our people, as I said, to take their destiny in their own hands. On the Oputa panel, you are aware, just a couple of weeks ago, General Salami Abubakar, you know, the last military head of state, had to speak out, you know, over the killing or the death of Abiola. It was simply reacting to the cross-examination that I subjected the CSO to, one Major Aliu. It came out because the facts are out there that this guy was killed. I mean, Abiola. So the general said, "Oh, we didn't kill him," you know. But that's before the Nigerian people now. The Oputa panel's report, we're reviving, rather, we are testing some of the recommendations. We just got a brief from a family. I can say this, you know, well, from one of the people killed by the military. They want to approach the court. Well, my friend, Prince Ben will say, "Oh, you can't, it's too late in the day, you know, statute of limitation." But the ECOWAS court has now ruled that when it comes to gross human rights abuse, you cannot invoke statute of limitation. So we're going to approach the ECOWAS court, you know, to see declaration and damages for the estate of one of the people killed by the Sani Abacha junta. On disobedience of court orders, Ben, yes, in fact, based on what happened in Lagos, and I spoke out when the Attorney General of the country and the IGP, Inspector General of Police, were accused of engaging in Gestapo tactics in enforcing a court order in Lagos. And that, what is the business of the Attorney General and the Inspector General of Police? And I came out, yes, they have a business. Because by virtue of Section 287 of the Constitution, all authorities, the judgment of the Supreme Court shall be enforced by all authorities and persons in Nigeria or by courts of subordinate jurisdiction. In the case of Lagos, for 10 years, the judgment of the Supreme Court was given. You know, it's not been allowed to be enforced. And so, the governor has a duty to enforce the judgment. The IG has a duty to enforce the judgment. The Attorney General has a duty to enforce the judgment. And I said, there was nothing Gestapo. In fact, Lagos should be, with profound respect, embarrassed to have been exposed. Because you cannot disobey the order of a court, particularly the Supreme Court of a country. And I said, I did say in a public forum, it happened in the United States once, in 1957, in the state of Arkansas, a small state, after the Brown and Board of Education, whereby segregation had been abolished in America. Some 9 black students were refused admission, and the governor of the state supported it. The president was on vacation, President Dwight Eisenhower. He had to cancel his vacation, rush to Washington to give an address and make the proclamation, and dispatched 1,000 troops to join 10,000 members of the National Guard around the area to go and put those black students in college. And they never left the state. They took over the state. And they never left until those students were admitted and they were going to classes. Any civilized society, the orders of courts must be obeyed. The alternative is that you are calling for anarchy and chaos. Well, you know the other thing why I like what happened in Lagos, Ben? I like it. And I'm celebrating it. You know why? I've just done a compilation now. And I'm sending my letter next week to the Attorney General of the Federation. I think about 2 letters. 1, 30 orders of the ECOWAS court have been disobeyed by the government of Nigeria. And the Attorney General of the country has undertaken, by virtue of Article 24 of the supplementary protocol of the ECOWAS, the Attorney General has been appointed to be the enforcement authority in Nigeria. So I'm saying, oh, you have done well in Lagos. Please, can you obey this order? In the case of Nigeria, we have compiled over 150 orders of domestic courts. In Lagos area alone, the orders being disobeyed by the police, it's about 42. So we're asking the IG, you have done very well in Lagos. Can you comply with this order? So let us start with that. And that will encourage other Nigerians to come out. Oh, you haven't complied with my own orders. On monetization of politics and so on. We cannot decree that out of existence now, but we all have a duty. What does the law say? It is that anybody who induces a voter with money, rice, or other material is deemed to have committed an offense. And we can see, they have even started. Bags of rice are already being distributed. We can start. Because if you don't enforce the law, you are going to be victims of their criminality. And that is why we must start now. Now, for our people, it's going to take time, but we have to start again to let them know the money they are distributing has been stolen. It's your money. Please vote for your children. Vote for the education of your children. Vote for employment for your children. And you can show this through your involvement in their own affairs. But you can't sit down in Lagos, my brother, and say you are going to expect people in your village to vote for you unless you are involved in local politics and unless they recognize you as one of them. Otherwise, oh, these Lagos people, you know. So where you are in Lagos, if you are a Lagos-based person, don't go to your village. I made a mistake when I went to Ekiti to contest. I had to be introducing myself. Oh, so you are from here. We thought you are from Ogun State or Lagos. No, I'm your son. No. I should have contested in Lagos, you know, and challenged the Tinubu people, you know. So for me, we must also contest where we are resident and where we have made maximum impact or where we have influenced people instead of going back to our villages where we are seen as strangers, you know, and we expect people to vote for us. On Susan, yeah, what keeps me going? Well, it's the conviction. I'm so optimistic that this country will lead the Black people all over the world. And if we can get it right in Nigeria, the problems of Africa will be significantly reduced. I mean, you are just talking of coups now in West Africa. Nigeria restored democracy or democratic rule or civil rule. In Liberia, and Sierra Leone, this country, we played our role in the decolonization process in Southern Africa, even though Nigeria was, you know, so far from the region. We were described as one of the frontline states, you know. Now, I was, a couple of years ago, I was in the Gambia to address judges and lawyers, and I was quite surprised, taken aback, when the NBA or the GBA Bar Association president informed me, Mr. Falana, do you know what happened here? Yaya Jammeh, who had been in power for 22 years, who had lost an election, and who had threatened, you know, not to leave office, decided to announce his surrender the day two jets, two NAF jets, Nigerian Air Force jets, flew over the presidential villa. The man ran out of the villa and went to hide in a hospital where he made the announcement that he wanted to hand over. So once you have the confidence that the potentiality of your country can be realized, giving good men and women to run the affairs of the country, you are likely to be optimistic. Again, and this is my position about whether one should entertain fear in what you believe in. Lawyers who are not involved in the struggle of our people are being kidnapped, they are being killed. So, whether you are involved in the struggle or not, you may run into problem in this society. So, why don't you insist? I mean, why don't you decide to be an agent of change and go a long way to reduce the suffering of our people significantly? I mean, just unfortunately, before the beginning of this program, I just learned now that about 3 lawyers were kidnapped in Warri today. 10 years ago, it will have been unthinkable that lawyers would be kidnapped in Nigeria. But now we are all in trouble. And therefore, you cannot sit on the fence any longer. Not to take side, as they used to say in Latin America in those days, under the fascistic regime of Pinochet, Augusto Pinochet. Not Reverend Fathers used to say this. And this will interest our pastor. Not to take side is to take side. By not taking side in the face of oppression, you have joined the oppressors. So lawyers, doctors, pastors, all of us will have to be involved as concerned citizens. And this is the only way to make the country a better place for all of us. On the ECOWAS, I just want to say that Mr. Adedoyin, I'm not a chief, and I don't intend to be one very soon or ever. On my letter to the ECOWAS chair, people have asked me about the letter. And I think I should say this. Some of the guys ruling us in Africa or in West Africa, and even our country, are people we also know very well. The president of Ghana is a senior lawyer. Is a former attorney general of that country. While he was attorney general, I was president of the West African Bar Association. Both of us share certain perspectives on political stability in Africa. But I'm not quite sure you are right, Mr. Adedoyin, when you say that you want me to address the human rights dimension to the destabilization of lawful government. I can tell you this, while I can never support a coup, and this is the essence of my letter, that the West African leaders are acting after the fact. You already know that some of these governments are going to collapse because of the contradictions within. Take Guinea, for instance. Alpha Conde, the president, was sentenced to death by a dictator. The people mobilized and saved him. After his 2 terms of 10 years in office, he manipulated the constitution for a 3rd time. People protested. Some of them were killed, others were detained. And so he created an environment for the coup. In the case of Mali and Burkina Faso, ECOWAS leaders, private people like all of us, saw who was coming because these guys, these soldiers were complaining about the incursion by insurgents. So, because we must be practical, and that is why I'm advising the ECOWAS leader. You must engage in preventive diplomacy. Don't allow governments to collapse before condemning coup plotters and suspending them. For instance, you had a coup in Chad. The president was killed by insurgents. Instead of allowing the Speaker of the National Assembly, in line with the constitution of that country, to take over power, you allow a coup. And you ask the son of the president to take over the country. The Speaker is supposed to conduct election within 3 months. AU, the African Union, up to now, has not condemned the coup in Chad, but you have condemned the coup in Guinea, in Burkina Faso, and Mali. Such selective condemnation of coup plotters is also problematic because you are not consistent, because that is against Article 30 of the Constitutive Act of the African Union to defend that there will be no room for illegal change of government. In the case of ECOWAS, and my position is that those sanctions will not work when you had external forces like France colluding with those dictators. In the case of Mali, following the condemnation or criticism of the junta by the French ambassador, the coup plotters have now said that they might bring in the Russians to defend them. This is a very dangerous dimension. And my position is that we have to revive the ECOMOG. We have to revive the multinational task force to defend some of these weaker states against the incursion of terrorists. And unless you are ready to do that, we may have more coups. You had a coup attempted coup in Guinea-Bissau a couple of days ago. Right now, some coup plotters are being tried in Niger, but they also attempted to stage a coup. Some mad people, some mad people are also being tried for a coup in Ghana. The cases are in court. So it's a problem for the region, and we have to move fast. We have to mobilize the civil society to defend democracy. But you cannot defend democracy when you have authoritarian rule in power. Unfortunately, in Burkina Faso, in Guinea, in Mali, people troop to the streets. So it's going to be difficult for ECOWAS to launch military attacks on those countries. So our best bet is for the ECOWAS leaders to be up and doing and ensure that they checkmate themselves. They must insist that the orders of ECOWAS court are obeyed. I can tell you, apart from the Gambia, I can say this very embarrassingly, apart from the Gambia, no ECOWAS member today can be said to comply with the orders of the ECOWAS court. In fact, out of the 15 member states, only 6 up to now. And that was a court that commenced sitting in 1991. Only 6 have undertaken to comply with the judgments of the court. And Nigeria is one of them. And I've just told you now that Nigeria has failed to comply with about 30 judgments. So a regime that does not obey the rule of law cannot expect compliance with democratic principles by everybody in that society. When you make it impossible for people to have a change of government peacefully, they look for alternative ways of changing government. And that is the position with coup plotters. Your suggestion is worth taking, that even when these guys have left office, it should be possible. If the system is so weak that they cannot be tried locally, they should be dragged to international tribunals. I can inform you now, in the case of the Gambia, Yaya Jammeh, who terrorized the people of that country for 22 years because of the demands of the people. And this is why we have to mobilize the civil society. The government of Adama Barrow, was compelled to set up what you call the Truth and Reconciliation as well as Reparation Commission, TRRC. The panel has submitted a wonderful report. I made representation there because some journalists were killed in that country with my clients. About 59 West African migrants were killed, including 9 Nigerians, who could only identify the family of one. And we sponsored the brother, told the commission to give evidence. Now, the government has made, the panel has made profound recommendations. The government will release the report, its white paper in May. And those of us lawyers in the region and around the world who are with the victims, who are representing the victim, are already discussing the possibility of putting Yahya Jammeh on trial, either in the Gambia or in one of the countries like Senegal, if the local atmosphere will not permit his trial. I'm sure you are aware, Charles Taylor is in prison, for 50 years. This one, there's no way that Yahya Jammeh will not be put on trial. So it should be possible for these guys, even when they are out of office, to have them tried and put on trial. I mean, even Burkina Faso, where Sankara was killed in the days of the military. That was the most progressive African leader that ever staged a coup. He was killed in 1987. Those who kill him are on trial. The military dictators that have just taken over power in that country cannot say we are canceling the trial. All they have said is that the trial is suspended until the restoration of democratic rule. So Africa is going through some experience, but like you have suggested, we must now add coup plotters. We must now ensure that coup plotters are put on trial. But if you are going to do that, I beg you, we must also ensure that the civilian governments are responsive to the yearnings and aspirations of their people. If they terrorize their people, if they impose a regime of terror, if they extend tenure through illegal amendments of the Constitution, you are going to have problem with democracy in the region. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, my brother. Our time is fast spent. I don't want to put you on the platform for longer than necessary, but there's so many people that want to ask one question.
Wow.
I think we'll take about 5 or 6 of them, and then I'll just beg the others that we'll do it next time.
Thank you very much.
And that means that you will be coming again to throw further light on this. Yes, but then I'll give you much longer notice by God's grace. And we need to get together to try and push some of the things we've spoken on here. So I'm going to ask the following people, please, to ask their questions. Please go straight to the point. Don't greet anybody. Don't thank anybody. We are all well greeted. Mr. Femi Olowe, my brother, Otumba Bimbo Ashiru. I don't know who is behind God is able, but your hand is up. Bayo Balogun, Floriat Colledium, Pato, who that is, and Bade Oyewole. Please keep these questions very short, straight to the point, so that we can close after this. If you do it fast, then maybe we can take 1 or 2 more people. Okay, Toib, okay, I'll take you because your hands has been up for a long time. Toib Awe, I'll take you. And then that's that for that now. Thank you very much. Femi, please go ahead.
Okay, quickly, Femi Olowe is my name. I worked with P&G, Procter & Gamble, up till 31st December. So I have 3 points. The first is on electronic transmission of election results. So we'll see the push here and there that's happening in Nigeria. What's your take on this? And if your take is positive, that it's recommended, how do we enforce the current government to approve this for use in the next election? Second one is the Nigerian Civil Defense, NSCDC. I believe the rationale behind the formation during Obasanjo's first term in office during this democracy dispensation was to allow community policing. So, but then the intent has been defeated. So today, I feel NSCDC should be reformed as state police. What is your take on this? And if your take is similar to my own, how do we enforce this to fruition? The third one is I will like to have your direct contact. I don't know if this is possible. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Please limit your questions to just one so that we can get everybody on board, please. God is able. Who is behind God is able?
Hello, my
Yeah,
name is,
go ahead.
okay, sir. Great effect, sir. My name is Ayodele Adeluga, popular called Ayo Venture. Thank you for this lecture, sir. My question is only one, but it's 1A, 1B. Because you said we should
Only
limit it to
one, no
one.
A, no B, one, please.
Sir, I strongly believe that, is it possible, sir, that all these movements we are talking about, is it possible for us to start from grassroots? What I mean by grassroots is that let's conquer from local government at most governor. If we can pull all the resources, all the people together based on the last, speech of Barrister Falana, if we can pull all resources together to take the leadership from that level, I think we are going to get there so faster than taking it from the top with the situation in the Nigeria. That, and again, Uncle Falana, please, there's a case going on in Nigeria that I want you to please, if you can take it up, it will be a good thing for all of us. Because I believe you believe in, fighting for people. There's a young man just killed recently, Mr. Timothy. I want to see if there's a way you can take that case up, that every Nigeria, we don't want kidnapping, killing. We want it to stop. If there's a way you can come up to assist that young guy killed at Ife in one of the hotels, please, that one will go a long way to prove that Nigeria, we are united, we are against killing innocent, because that guy is a graduate of equally great Ife, a 37-year-old guy that was killed in one hotel in Ife. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. By Otumba Bimbashiru, please. Please unmute yourself.
Yes, I think I've done that now.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes, thank you very much. Good evening, Pastor Itwa and Mr. Falana. My own question might be a bit provocative, but I will say this. I was told, and I heard that you were being offered the Attorney General of the Federation during this dispensation, and I'm not sure whether you accepted or not before Malami. My question is that, assuming you were offered, would you have accepted the offer? And if you accept the offer, what would you have done differently? Because what I found out in this country is that when people that criticize and they are talking about this, when they get there, they do something else. Some of the people that are there now, they've been criticizing government, talking about what they are doing wrongly. But when they got there, it was another thing entirely. I remember during the late Abacha, Chief Olon Ogoro was offered the job. I'm not sure, what happened, but I have not seen a Nigerian that is honorable enough to resign as a minister when things are not going right. They will get there and start defending the wrongs. And you start looking at them and saying, it's not the same man that was talking this about a year ago. So I don't know whether when they get there, place change them or not. So that's my own question, that would you have accepted? Or if you had accepted, what would you have done rightly? Because you just spoke about respecting the rule of law. So I just want to find out whether the question I asked is right or wrong. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Otumba. Bayo Balogun, please. Straight to the question.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Okay, my question is, what can the youths do differently? Especially with reference to the NSAS protests. So what can the youths do differently? That's my question, sir.
Very good. I think I asked something similar myself. Mr. Gbade Oyewole, please. Okay. Please unmute yourself.
Done. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Falana. My question is simply, there can't be any looting, any embezzlement without the connivance of the civil servants. Sir, what do you think? Don't you think the civil servants, the civil service should be reformed? That's just my question. Because there's no way a politician will not go and put his hand or a hand on the cookie jar and remove anything without the connivance of the civil servant. Please, I think whether there should be a reform of the civil service. God bless you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Oyewole. Pato, please unmute yourself straight to the question or comment. Pato is not there. Okay, very good. Toib Awe. Toib, unmute yourself, please. Straight to the question. Toib, going, gone. Okay, we'll just take two more. Saying Demi, quickly, your question. Unmute yourself, please.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Go ahead. Just go ahead. We can hear you. Just go ahead.
Okay, my name is Saindemi Batula. And the question I want to throw is that what is the fate of people with disability that are educated and have passion to look part of the leadership in this country? What is their fate in becoming a leader in this country, in a political way? And what is the how can they go about it so that they too can vouch for a post when they actually have a dream and a vision to change this nation?
Thank you very much. Thank you. The last person, please, Akinola Idowu. You are the last person, please. Thank you. Unmute yourself straight to the question. We can't hear you.
Hello.
Go ahead.
Good evening, sir. Thank you for having me, sir. Please, I wanted to ask from Mr. Falana, the issue of Lagos State emergency workers under Amode regime were owed about 8 months' salaries, and we approached Falana's chambers. I don't know if any help could be done and push for it in this present dispensation. Thank you.
Well, I didn't quite hear what he said. I don't know if Mr. Falana heard the question. Something about people being owed 8 months' salary. Which people were owed 8 months' salary, Akinola?
The Lagos State emergency.
Lagos State emergency.
Lagos State emergency.
Thank you very much. So, my brother, Mr. Falana, please answer those questions. And honestly, we will not be able to take any more questions for tonight. We will do the rest next week with another speaker, or when next Mr. Falana comes. So, Femi, over to you, sir. Is he still there?
Aha.
Okay, please go ahead. Unmute yourself.
Yes, from Mr. Lowen. Electronic transmission of election results has been included in the electoral bill that has just been forwarded to the president again. And this, the Nigerian people must be commended. The National Assembly people, understandably, members of the National Assembly that wanted to retain the status quo, refused and rejected electronic transmission of election results. But Nigerians put up a battle, and which was won. So it is part of the new bill. On the civil defense, it was created, albeit illegally in 2003. I say illegally because by virtue of section 214 of the Constitution, Nigeria shall have only one police force. Unfortunately, the state governments that wanted state police did not take advantage of that, to demand for state police at the material time. Today, the president National Assembly members have rejected state police might be misused or abused by governors. We can go into another debate on that. In the Southwest,
and then we're having network issues. And then there's
can you hear me, please?
yeah, it's better now. We can't hear you again. Can't hear you. Please unmute yourself. Unmute yourself. We can't hear you.
You have just
Okay.
allowed me to unmute myself now. I'm saying that you have vigilante groups all over the place. I think the government is living in denial. The federal government is unable to police the country. If you have fears that the police in the state may be abused, just like the federal police, why not put the machinery in place to stop that? And I have suggested, have a police council in every state made up of credible organizations, whose members will be credible, accredited representative of credible organization. All the government will do is to fund it. But you have a state police that will be at the beck and call of a governor or the speaker of a state, of the House of Assembly of a state. Once you can take care of that, you don't need to have any fear. Yes, God disabled. Yes, yeah, you want my direct contact, I think Pastor will make that available, God disabled, thank you very much. Moving to grassroots level, we are working with a lot of organizations and details will be spelled out very soon. And we're not operating from above. We want to go to the grassroots, mobilize people, share their agony with them, and that's why we are taking up a lot of cases that have to do with the oppression of our people. Yes, on your suggestion with regards to the killing in Ife, the family members have reached out to me today and have offered to intervene in the case. One of the things we are challenging is the decision of the police to charge the suspect in Abuja. Under our law, you have to charge the offense, the suspect, in the place where the offense was committed or is committed. So you can't go to a foreign territory, as it were. The alleged killing did not take place in the Federal Capital Territory, so you can't have the trial in Abuja. I think that will be, we're trying, incidentally, I'm in Abuja, and I intend to contact the police authorities on that tomorrow, and ensure that the proper thing is done. On whether I was offered the post of Attorney General of the country or whatever, I'm not going to say much on that now, other than to say that I cannot, at my level, serve a government that will not obey court orders. I cannot serve a government that will engage in reckless borrowing from abroad when we have the resources at home. I cannot serve a government that would disobey court orders. I cannot serve a government that would detain people illegally. Opportunistically, go to any public office to make what point? I'm not going to build a new house, you know. I'm not going to have, you know, any new property. So what is there, you know, that will attract me now to be part of the reckless destruction of my country? It's too late in the day, you know. And so it is not fair to use the example of a few people, you know, to then rubbish everybody. It's not fair, you know. We must begin to have confidence in ourselves, you know. And it's not the first time, you know, people are offered positions and they say, please allow me, I cannot serve for now, for this fear, you know, for instance, our movement wrote to the government last year, and the government has not been able to reply. Now you say you are borrowing, and we can make the letter available through this forum, that you can collect 94 trillion naira, all the country, in and outside the country. So what are you looking for money for? And the last letter we have just done, which has already caused a problem in the circles of the government, was that the government claimed, oh, since you people say we should not remove subsidy, this year alone, we are going to spend 3 trillion on fuel subsidy. No problem. Our organization wrote to the Minister of Finance last week. Thank you, madam. We have just read this, your statement. Can we have the details of how you intend to spend such a huge sum of money on fuel subsidy? Because according to them, between January and June this year, what was budgeted was 443 billion naira. How can you now say that between July and December, 6 months, you are going to spend 2.557 trillion naira? Even though the government has not replied the letter. The Minister of Petroleum, Minister of State, the Minister of Petroleum Resources, you know, has come out to say these figures are questionable by the government. And if by the end of this week, the minister does not reply our letter, we are going to court next week under the Freedom of Information Act. Thou shalt disclose. And our argument is this. This will interest you. The Comptroller General of Customs, Kone Hamid Ali, had gone to the National Assembly last year to say that the NNPC and Directorate of Petroleum Resources, DPR, are involved in smuggling publicly. You can Google where you are. You can Google NNPC involved in smuggling. The news will come out. And what do you mean? What do you mean by this smuggling? Whatever. We are being punished according to the government for the criminal activities of some smugglers. And we say, who are these smugglers? You claim, DPR claim, that the daily consumption of fuel in Nigeria is 38.2 million liters. Again, you can Google. NNPC say yes, but we are importing 102 million liters. In other words, over 60 million liters are smuggled out of Nigeria daily. We then sat down and discovered that the figures didn't add up. Because to smuggle out 60 million liters per day, you need about 1,800 tankers. Because a tanker can only carry 33,000, liters. So how did you? The figures did not add up. The government cannot explain what is being done with the fund. Customs is saying these smugglers do not exist because you are indicting them. You are indicting the board of customs. We are pursuing, and I want you to be part of the struggle. The House of Reps. The House of Reps has also passed a resolution now saying that it is going to investigate, this colossal fraud in the name of fuel subsidy. What can the youth do differently in our country? Please, I want to beg you, study the history of our country, please, very well. What the youth did in October 2020 was a reenactment of the struggle of the Nahoros, the Agunas, the Mogo Okoyes and others in the 40s. Very interestingly, the youth are going to, these members of the Zikis movement were going to organize a public lecture in Glover Hall, a call for revolution. And they had the lecture, contrary to the threat of the colonial regime. After the election, they were put on trial and jailed for sedition. Many of them were jailed for sedition. And our, I think, was 21 at that time. So our country has been peopled by young people who are prepared to reject oppression at all times. And what we have to do now is to understand the history of the country. The Awolowos of this world, the Zigs of this world, and the rest of them govern their regions and govern the country as youths. Gowon became the head of state of this country at the age of 32. Obasanjo and others, you know, they were in their 40s when Obasanjo retired at 42. So we have a history of young people that have ruled the country. But along the way, you know, some people hijack the leadership of the country. And they now insist that only they or their children will govern our country. The young people are in the majority, and so they can take the destiny of the country in their own hands by aligning themselves with progressive people. You know, some of them are non-Nigerians, some are octogenarians. It's not about the age. It's about your ideas. It's about your goal to turn things around in the country. So I beg you, you need to understand the history of the country. You need to familiarize yourself with the history of the country. On civil servant, the role of civil servants in corruption. Well, a civil servant has just been arrested in Abuja by the ICPC. He was found with about 103 houses and 9.5 hectares of land in Abuja. So I agree with you that civil servants are deeply involved in corruption, but we are not fighting corruption. The government is making some noise to attract attention. This is not how to fight corruption. You can't run a country where people are not paid salaries for 8 months, where retired people are not paid their pension. You are simply asking them to prepare for the rainy day. So the government must sit down. I mean, Nigeria is almost the only country where you need to go and get millions to buy a house as a civil servant. You need to go and borrow money to educate your children. So your take home cannot take you home. So we must change the narrative and ensure that we are reorganizing our country by embarking on equitable distribution of our resources, on how to become leaders. I think I've addressed this, that we need to get engaged politically. We need to mobilize people. It's not about money all the time. It's about your involvement in the struggle of our people, in their daily encounter. Don't behave like politicians, professional politicians, by coming to distribute money during election. On a daily basis, be with the people. Get yourself involved in their daily struggle. The last one on the people that are not paid in Lagos. If you can discuss areas of 8 months' salary, please, if we can discuss this at the end of the program, I can assure you I will take it up and then be able to report within the next 1 or 2 weeks. Thank you very much. Pastor, I'm done. I'm decided to rest my case here.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. The Lord will bless you and Lord will be back to you. Lord will protect your family
Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr.
Falana. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much. Thank you.
Can we get this recording? Can we get this recording, Pastor?
We're all sponsors.
Thank you very much.
Very much, everyone. Thank you, Pastor Itwa. Bless you.
Thank you,
Bless you.
Pastor.
Thank you, everyone. The movement is on. We're going to go and do our best to make sure that we turn Nigeria around, and we're going to stand toe to toe with very strong and capable people. Thank you all for coming. We are on Twitter at algroup-org, algroup-org. If you know anybody that you think we should feature on this platform, please let me know or send us an email, and we'll be happy to feature that person. But I want people who are progressive, people who are thinking, people who have ideas, people who are bold, people who are ready to put their money where their mouth is. Everyone, thank you very much for coming. God bless you all. Have a wonderful weekend, and God be with you.
Thank you, Mr. Toa. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pastor.
God bless you.
We are listening to that.
Thank you, Pastor.
Well done, Pastor.
How are you?
Thank you,
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Pastor. Well done.
Enjoy.
Thank you so much.